Didn't feel anything when I got the text. That probably says everything. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was in the middle of charting from the night before. I work as a software engineer, but I moonlight on spreadsheets the way some people moonlight on poetry, obsessively, quietly, at odd hours, and my phone buzzed on the desk. A group chat notification. My mother had created a new group called Summer Gathering, and the members were my aunt, my uncle, my grandmother, my brother, and my brother's wife. Not me. I only saw it because my grandmother accidentally sent a voice note to the wrong thread, the one that still had me in it, the old family chat that nobody used anymore. And when I played it, I heard her say, "So excited, the whole family together, finally, the whole family, just not me." I sat there for a second. Then I closed the app and went back to my spreadsheet. That moment, right there, that absence of tears, that flat quiet, that's when I think things actually ended for me. Not the day they uninvited me. Not the day I stopped sending money. Not even the day I changed the locks. It ended on a Tuesday morning when I heard my grandmother say whole family and felt nothing at all. Let me back up, because none of this makes sense without the numbers. And I've always been a numbers person. It's actually how I make sense of the world. I quantify things. Emotions, situations, patterns. When something feels wrong, I build a spreadsheet. I started the spreadsheet in 2019. By the time things came to a head this past spring, it had 47 rows. The first entry was $1,200. My brother. I'll call him by what he's always been to me, which is my little brother, even though he's 29 now and taller than me by 4 inches. He needed first and last month's rent for an apartment in Phoenix. He'd just moved there for a girl, which I told him was a bad idea, but I sent the money anyway because he sounded scared on the phone and I'm his big sister and that's what I do. The girl lasted 3 months. The apartment lasted 8. And the $1,200 was never mentioned again. Then there was $3,400 for my mother's car repair. Then $900 for my brother's car registration and impound fees. Then $5,000. I remember this one because I had to move money from my emergency fund for my mother's medical bill, which turned out later to be mostly cosmetic dental work. Not a medical emergency. Veneers. She wanted veneers and she told me it was a health issue and I sent $5,000 and she got a new smile and never said the word thank you in a way that felt real. By 2021, the spreadsheet had 22 rows. By 2022, it had 31. By 2023, when I finally stopped accepting the calls, the total was $61,400. $61,400. Across 4 years, from one person, me. I'm 32 years old. I make good money. I'm a senior engineer at a mid-sized tech company in Austin. I've been promoted twice. I have a 401k and a high-yield savings account, and I meal prep on Sundays. I'm not rich, but I am careful, and because I'm careful, I had the money to give. And because I love my family, I gave it. And because I gave it, they assumed I always would. What I never understood, what I still don't fully understand, is how the giving became invisible while the withholding became a crime. The moment I started saying no, I became the problem. Not the years of yes, not the 47 rows, just the no. My mother has a way of reframing things that I've always found quietly devastating. She doesn't lie exactly. She just repositions the facts until they face a different direction. So when I missed Christmas 2022 because I had a project deadline and a sinus infection, she didn't say you were sick and working. She said you chose work over family. When I couldn't make it to my nephew's birthday in March because I'd already booked a non-refundable flight for a work conference, she didn't say the timing was bad. She said you're never here when it matters. I was here when my brother's truck got repossessed. I was here by wire transfer, by Zelle, by check, for every single crisis they ever had. But that doesn't count as being there. Apparently being there means being physically present at every birthday and barbecue and Sunday dinner, even when you live 4 states away and work 50-hour weeks. When the group chat happened, the summer gathering one, the one I wasn't in, I didn't say anything at first. I waited. I thought maybe it was an accident. Maybe she forgot to add me. Maybe there was a logical explanation that I was missing because I always try to find the logical explanation first. A week went by. I texted my mother directly. Hey, saw there's a family thing planned for July. Am I invited? She called instead of texting back, which is never a good sign. She said, and I want to be precise here because I wrote it down immediately after we hung up. Sweetheart, I just thought it would be easier this year to keep it to immediate family. You're always so busy. I didn't want you to feel obligated. I said, I'm your daughter. She said, of course you are. But immediate family, you know. I mean the people who are consistently present. Your brother is here. His wife is here. It's just simpler. I said you $40,000 in the last 8 months. Long pause. She said, I don't think this has to be about money. I hung up. I opened my spreadsheet. I added a new tab and titled it Documentation. I want to tell you about the property because that's where the story stops being sad and starts being something else. My great-aunt passed away in the fall of 2022. She was my grandmother's sister, and she never had children of her own, and she'd always had a soft spot for me. I used to visit her every summer when I was a kid, spent whole weeks at her house in rural Vermont, learned to bake bread and identify birds and sit with my own thoughts. She left me something in her will, a small piece of land, about 2 acres with a cabin on it. Nothing fancy, no central heat. A wood stove, a porch that needed repainting, a view of a ridge that looked like it was drawn by someone who loved the world very much. I didn't tell my family, not right away, not until I'd already flown up there, met with the property attorney, had the deed transferred into my name, and spent a long weekend walking the perimeter with my hands in my pockets, thinking this is mine and nobody knows about it yet. I told one person, my best friend Ingrid, who is also an engineer and whose primary love language is logistics. She helped me find a local contractor to assess the cabin's condition, found me a property insurance broker, and spent 1 weekend with me hauling storm debris off the back path. We hung a new door. We fixed the porch railing. We tested the wood stove 3 times before I felt confident it wouldn't burn the place down. I installed a security camera system, motion-activated with mobile alerts. I set up a gate at the end of the gravel driveway, combination lock. Only Ingrid and I knew the code. I was not expecting to need any of it, honestly. I thought I was just being careful. I'm always careful. It's the engineer in me. I plan for contingencies that I hope never happen. This one happened. The summer gathering my family had without me was in July. I found out through my grandmother's Facebook. She posts everything, bless her, and it looked nice. There were photos of my brother grilling, my mother in a sundress, my aunt's potato salad, which I actually love and now felt like a small personal insult. They all looked very happy and whole, and I looked at those photos for maybe 45 seconds, and then I closed the app and went for a run. I didn't contact anyone. I didn't post anything passive-aggressive. I just went for a run and came home and sat on my balcony with a glass of water and thought about the 2 acres in Vermont with a view of the ridge. I did not send any money that month, or the next month, or the month after that. My mother called twice in August, once to tell me she was proud of me, which she has never once initiated without wanting something, and once to ask if I could help cover a shortfall on the property tax for the house she and my stepfather own. They were $2,800 short. I said I wasn't in a position to help right now. She said she understood. She didn't call again for 6 weeks. Here's the thing about family financial dynamics that nobody talks about openly. Once you become the person who helps, You lose the option to stop. Not legally. Obviously, I had no legal obligation, but relationally, emotionally. Emotionally, the help becomes so woven into how the family functions that when you stop, it doesn't feel to them like you've reclaimed something. It feels like you've taken something away. You become the thief of your own generosity. My brother texted me in September. Just a how are you text, which was unusual enough that I knew it wasn't really a how are you text. I wrote back, good, busy. You? He said, Mom mentioned you've been a little distant lately. I said, I'm not distant. I'm in Austin. That's just geography. He didn't respond to that. 2 days later, he called and asked, sort of casually, sort of not, if I owned property up in New England somewhere. He'd heard something from my grandmother, who heard it from my great-aunt's neighbor, who apparently mentioned to someone that a young woman had been up fixing up the cabin. I said I inherited something from Aunt Rochelle. Yes. He said, oh wow, that's great. What is it? I said, a small piece of land. He said, a cabin? I said, a small piece of land. He said, a small piece of land. He said, cool. And then the conversation moved on, and I thought, okay, that's fine. They know. That's fine. They zo. It was not fine. I got the motion alert on a Friday morning in April. I was at my desk, working from home, like most Fridays, and my phone buzzed with a camera notification. I opened the app and looked at the live feed, and I felt something shift in my chest, some quiet, cold thing, because the car coming down my gravel driveway was my mother's silver Nissan, and there was another car behind her, a car I didn't recognize. I watched on the camera as they parked. My mother got out. My brother's wife got out from the passenger side, and from the second car came a man I'd never seen before, carrying a clipboard and what looked like a property assessment form. I had maybe 90 seconds before they reached the cabin door. I picked up my phone and called the one person I needed to call. Then I sat back down, poured the rest of my coffee, and waited. I should tell you how I'd gotten to that point. Why I had a number saved in my phone, why I wasn't scrambling, why the cold thing in my chest wasn't panic. After my mother excluded me from the family gathering, I did what I do. I got organized. I called a property attorney in Vermont, someone I found through the County Bar Association, someone with no connection to anyone I knew, and I explained my situation. I told her about the inheritance. I told her about my family dynamics. I told her, specifically, that I had a feeling my mother might someday take an interest in the property that went beyond normal family curiosity. She said, do you have documentation of the inheritance? I said, I have the will, the deed, the transfer paperwork, and a folder with the full chain of title going back 30 years. She said, good. Now let me tell you about your options if someone shows up uninvited. We talked for an hour. I paid her consultation fee, $250, which I added to my personal records, not the family spreadsheet, and I left with her cell number and a clear understanding of exactly what my rights were and exactly what I could do if those rights were violated. I also, the following week, introduced myself to the deputy who covered my area. Not formally, not dramatically. I just stopped by the local substation when I was up there for a weekend visit, told him I was the new owner of the Rochelle property on Cutter Road, asked if there was anything I should know about the area. He was friendly. We talked for 15 minutes. I mentioned, just in passing, that I was a solo property owner and that I wanted to make sure I knew who to call if I ever had an issue. He gave me his direct number. I drove home feeling calmer than I had in months. By the time my mother reached the cabin porch, I was on the phone with my attorney. I had my laptop open to the property documents. I had the deputy's number pulled up in a second tab on my phone. I watched them on the camera. My mother knocked. My brother's wife stood slightly behind her, looking around at the property with an expression I recognized from 100 family conversations. That particular look of assessing what something is worth. The man with the clipboard walked the perimeter of the cabin slowly. He was measuring something. I called the deputy's number. Then I unlocked the front door remotely, the new smart lock I'd installed in February, and I stepped outside onto the porch and I said calmly, "Can I help you?" My mother, startled. She hadn't expected me to be there. She thought I was in Austin. She'd checked my Instagram the night before. I post regularly enough that it functions as a kind of alibi. And I'd posted a photo of my dinner, which I'd taken the week before and scheduled to go up that Friday. A small, petty, premeditated thing. I'm not proud of it, but I'm also not sorry. She recovered quickly. She said, "Oh, honey, you're here." I said, "This is my property." "Yes?" She said, of course. We came to see it. We wanted to see what you had." I looked at the man with the clipboard. I said, "Who is this?" He introduced himself. He said he was a property assessor. He handed me a card. I held the card, and I looked at my mother and I said, "Why is there a property assessor on my land?" My mother did the thing she does when she's cornered, which is to speak very quickly and frame everything as reasonable. She said that she'd been thinking and talking with my brother and his wife, and they felt that given everything, the family situation, the way things had been lately, the investment I'd received from a family asset, meaning Aunt Rochelle, meaning my great-aunt who left me this property because she chose to, it might make more sense for the cabin to go to my brother and his wife. They had kids. They needed space. It was a family piece of land, and it deserved to stay in the family in a way that was useful. I let her finish. Then I said, "The land is mine. Aunt Rochelle left it to me specifically in a legally executed will. I have the deed. I have the transfer documentation, and you're standing on private property without permission with someone who is here to assess a property that is not yours and will never be yours." My mother said, "You don't have to be like this." I said, "I'm not being like anything. I'm stating facts." A car came down the driveway then. The deputy had made good time. I won't pretend the deputy's arrival was dramatic. It wasn't. He pulled up, got out, nodded at me, and I handed him the situation in about 3 sentences. My mother and her companion had arrived unannounced with a property assessor to evaluate land I own and have owned since inheriting it 18 months ago. They did not have my permission to be here, and I would like them to leave. He was professional and calm. He explained to my mother that this was private property, that accessing it without the owner's consent could constitute trespassing, and that the property assessor had no legal standing to conduct an evaluation without my authorization. The assessor left immediately. He looked embarrassed. My mother stayed a few minutes longer. She tried twice more to reframe the situation as a misunderstanding, as concern, as love. My brother's wife stood by the car and said nothing and wouldn't make eye contact with me. Eventually they left. I stood on the porch after the deputy's cruiser disappeared down the road, and I looked out at the ridge and I thought, I'm not the one who made this happen. They did. They made every single choice that led to this moment. That helped, actually. That thought, actually. My attorney sent a formal letter to my mother the following week. It documented the incident, referenced the relevant Vermont statutes, and made clear that any future unauthorized presence on the property would result in a formal trespassing complaint. I also sent my mother something else. I exported my spreadsheet, 47 rows, dating from October 2019 through October 2023, and I put it in a PDF and I emailed it to her with a short note. The note said, "Mom, I want you to have a record of the financial support I've provided to you and our family over the last 4 years. I don't expect repayment. I'm sending this so that the next time you make a decision about what I do or don't deserve as a member of this family, you have complete information. I love you." She hasn't responded to the email. My brother texted me 3 days after the property incident. He said, I didn't know she was going up there. I want you to know that. I said, okay. He said, are we okay? I said, I don't know yet. I need some time. He said, fair enough. That's the most honest conversation we've had in probably 2 years. So there's that. I'm writing this from the porch. It's early May. The ridge is the color of new money. That specific green that only happens in spring in New England, the kind that makes you feel like the world is showing off. The wood stove is on because mornings are still cold up here. I have coffee, I have my laptop, I have 2 acres that belong entirely to me, and I know now, in a way I didn't before, that belonging means something. I've been thinking a lot about the person I was when I made that first $12,012 transfer. 28 years old, newly promoted, newly moved to Austin, so relieved to finally have enough money that helping felt like abundance. I don't think that person was stupid. I think she loved her family and she expressed it in the only language they seemed to understand, which was financial. And she kept expressing it long after they'd stopped speaking any language she could understand in return. The thing I keep turning over in my mind, the thing I can't quite put down, is the word deserve. My mother said, that day on the porch, that my brother's family deserved a space like this. She meant it. She genuinely believes that needing something loudly and persistently constitutes a kind of merit. That the family members who show up at the barbecues and take up space at the Sunday dinners have earned more than the one who works in the background, who sends money in the night, who is consistently, quietly there in the way that doesn't make for good Instagram photos. I used to believe that love would eventually be recognized, that the ledger would balance itself somehow, emotionally if not financially. It doesn't work that way. The ledger doesn't balance itself. You have to balance it yourself. And sometimes balancing it looks like changing the locks and installing cameras and having an attorney on speed dial and knowing the name of your local deputy. It looks like sitting on your own porch, on your own land, drinking your own coffee. It looks like this. I want to say one thing to anyone who recognizes this situation, not the specific details, but the shape of it. The shape of being the responsible one, the capable one, the one who can handle it, the one who can handle it, the one who gets called when something goes wrong, the one who doesn't get invited to the gathering. The money you gave isn't gone. It's transformed. It brought you information. You now know, clearly and without ambiguity, exactly what you mean to those people. That's not nothing. That's actually the most valuable thing they ever gave you. Use it. Build your gate. Learn your rights. Know your local deputy by name. Find your ridge. You've been paying for this clarity for years. You've already earned it. I thought a lot about cause and effect since that April morning on the porch. Not in any cosmic or religious sense. I'm an engineer, I think in systems, but in the very plain, observable way that choices compound over time until they become outcomes nobody can argue with. My mother made a series of choices. She chose to frame my absence at barbecues as abandonment while treating my wire transfers as a given. She chose to create a group chat called Summer Gathering with every member of our family except the one who'd been quietly funding everyone's emergencies for 4 years. She chose to drive 6 hours to a property she had no legal claim to, with a clipboard and a stranger, to decide what would become of something that was never hers. Every single one of those choices was hers. And every single outcome that followed, the deputy in the driveway, the attorney's letter, the spreadsheet PDF in her inbox, followed directly from them. I didn't manufacture any of it. I just stopped absorbing the damage and started documenting it instead. That's the thing about being the capable one in a family. Your capability gets used against you. Because you can handle it, you're expected to. Because you don't collapse, nobody worries about you. because you send the money without making a scene, the money stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling like a resource. And the moment you redirect that resource toward yourself, toward 2 acres in Vermont and a wood stove and a porch with a view, suddenly you're the selfish one. Suddenly you're the problem. What I learned, slowly and at considerable expense, is that protecting yourself is not the same as being cruel. Installing a gate is not aggression. Knowing your property attorney's cell number is not paranoia. These are just the practical expressions of understanding your own worth, which is a thing that nobody in my family ever helped me understand, so I had to learn it myself from Aunt Rochelle, who left me land instead of advice because maybe she knew that land lasts longer. Ingrid helped me hang a new door the first weekend we worked on the cabin. It sounds small. It wasn't. There's something about choosing your own hardware, setting your own hinges, deciding who gets to walk through and who doesn't. It changes how you think about yourself. I was 32 years old and I had never in my life decided who was allowed through a door. I just left them open and hoped for the best. I'm not angry at the version of me who sent all that money. She was doing the most human thing there is. She was trying to make people love her in the language they understood. But love that has to be purchased on installment isn't love. It's a subscription, and when you cancel a subscription, the service ends. That's not betrayal. That's just math. My brother texted last week, a real text this time, not a pre-ask warm-up. He asked if he could come visit the cabin sometime. Just to see it. Just us. I said I'd think about it. That's the most honest thing I've said to him in years. Not yes, not no, just the truth, which is that I don't know yet, and I'm done pretending otherwise. The ridge is still green. The wood stove still works. The gate is still locked. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like all of those things belong to me in a way that goes beyond paperwork. That's what it cost $61,400 to learn. I wish it had been cheaper. But I'm not giving the lesson back.